uncommon lunge matrix with our common shoulder to overhead presses. Shoulder carry position, our posterior lunge, shoulder to overhead. As you sink your butt down and into the right butt, shoulder to overhead, side to side, shoulder to overhead. Rotate to the same side of the arm that you're pressing with. In the frontal plane, we have two different lunge sequences. Medial, I'll go over top, and also down and below. I'm going to show you both. Step over and across, shoulder to overhead, shoulder to overhead, shoulder to overhead, side to side. And then with rotation, rotate trunk left, press left, rotate trunk right, press right. I'm then going to show you the crossover underneath posteriorly as we cross first anteriorly. So we'll cross over down and underneath to load the lead leg a little bit more. Shoulder to overhead, shoulder to overhead, side to side, shoulder to overhead, rotate your trunk in the same direction you press with. We then have an uncommon transverse plane lunge where we step, cross over at a 90-degree angle. So what I do with that guy, as you transition from here to here, shoulder to overhead press, and you can deepen the lunge and expand it by taking the left heel off the ground as long as the left foot stays pointed forward. Chances are you're going to have a hard time doing that. Shoulder overhead to the same side, and then shoulder to overhead, rotate trunk left, press left, rotate trunk right, press right. Those are three main uncommon lunges, and as you know from the first kind of series with the common and uncommon, these uncommon lunges, we have a couple additional ones that are a hybrid of the planes. So what I like to do, two positions for each. We have this posterior lateral, and we have this posterior medial. So what we can do, we can load up either the front or the back leg a little bit more depending on what we want to do. So the pivot from an anterior medial would be a different kind of posterior lateral, as I just basically sink my weight down and back into that back hip, or I can transition to a full-on lunge and load on my right toes and forefoot. We then have this, so as I'm stepping down and back and load, the side-to-side press, lunge outside the midline, and then we have our transverse plane presses with the same foot positioning. Sink and load, rotate and press to the same side that your trunk rotates to. And then we transition pivot-wise, anterior lateral to posterior medial. Again, two ways you can do this. You can cross over, just load into that back leg, getting the foot nice and flat, or you can cross over and load onto the feet and the ankles and the forefoot. A little bit more to facilitate transition of both the right and the left hip loading. So what we'll do, nice flat foot, as flat as you can get it. Shoulder overhead. Still our common presses. Side to side, and then rotationally. And now we're going to transition to the second form of anterior medial, just straight down and in, loading up the left hip into a little more flexion, shoulder to overhead for the common. And then our rotation, rotate your trunk in the same direction you're pressing to.